The events of this story began in the spring of 2019 and concluded in November of the same year. Only recently did it occur to me that this story truly belongs here, a tale that remains, without exaggeration, the strangest and most unsettling interpersonal experience I have ever endured. It unfolded slowly, like a creeping fog, revealing layers of manipulation, deceit, and obsession. From the very beginning, I felt like a detective trying to piece together the identity of a hidden tormentor. And when the truth finally emerged, my mind spun with confusion, betrayal, and the chilling realization that I may have narrowly escaped something far more sinister. It started innocently enough. In 2018, I had a friends with benefits relationship with a man named Judah. He appeared during one of those doomed, let's open our relationship phases, a last-ditch attempt to avoid a breakup. While I enjoyed his presence, there was never a deep emotional connection between us. Eventually, our interactions tapered off amicably, limited to liking each other's Tumblr posts and occasional Snapchats. Months later, Judah reached out for some writing advice. I wanted to be genuinely helpful, so I crafted a few paragraphs of heartfelt feedback. He thanked me, and then our contact dwindled again. Not long after, the first disturbing anonymous messages appeared on my Tumblr. At first, they were mere insults targeting my appearance and my art, which I dismissed as random trolling. But gradually, they escalated, becoming disturbingly specific. The harasser began implying knowledge of my real-life whereabouts, dropping hints about the school I attended, details not publicly available on my blog. My chest tightened with unease. Whoever was behind this must have known me personally, or had gone to extraordinary lengths to track me down. Judah immediately came to mind. Very few people knew my Tumblr URL, and he was the only one for whom I could imagine a motive for jealous harassment. Despite this suspicion, I blocked him on all social media and tried to move on. But the harassment only intensified. The messages turned crueler, mocking my disabilities and threatening physical harm. Religion became a twisted weapon in their hands, as they claimed my ailments were divine punishment. Anxiety shadowed me each time the new message icon appeared, and I eventually disabled anonymous messaging. This, however, only prompted the birth of a new series of accounts, beginning with one ominously named Chaos Bringer. The tone shifted into something occult, sinister, and deeply unnerving. They invoked Lord Satan and spoke of curses and demonic torment. I blocked them, but the harassment persisted under new accounts, each more elaborate than the last. Then came Soul Chaos Bringer 2. The messages from this account were pure nightmare fuel. Claims of energetic warfare, demonic ownership, and threats against my soul. They even recommended mystical protections like selenite, as if to mock and control me simultaneously. I blocked them, and another account emerged. It became a relentless game, a shadowy stalker tormenting me under different guises. After a period of silence, I tentatively turned anonymous messages back on. Within days, the familiar waves of hatred returned. At one point, a message of apparent remorse appeared, only to be followed by renewed harassment. Amidst this chaos, someone approached me who seemed different. Elm, a non-binary person new to my area, shy but friendly.
They claimed to have noticed from my photos that we lived near each other. Tentatively, I engaged with them, and our discussions about spirituality and astrology initially seemed harmless. A small test reassured me that Elm was not the harasser. We eventually met up to buy weed, though the encounter was chaotic: a wrong address, a twisted ankle, manic energy, and a brief hangout that ended too soon due to my exhaustion. After that day, the messages dwindled. Elm and I continued occasional chats until suddenly they ended our budding friendship abruptly, citing a lack of common ground. I was taken aback, yet suspicion did not immediately strike me. Then fate intervened. On the very same day, my best friend Monica logged into Tumblr for the first time in over a year. She had also received hateful messages dating back to spring 2019. There was only one mutual acquaintance with access to both of our accounts: Judah. It all clicked. When I confronted Judah, he denied involvement, but inadvertently revealed that his partner had indeed sent one hateful message out of jealousy over our past relationship. My heart sank as I pieced it together. Elm had manipulated and deceived me, gaining my trust to enter my home, all while harboring a deep, violent hatred. The lies, the occult threats, the obsession, it had all originated from them. By the time they finally revealed themselves, 5 months of torment had passed, followed by 3 more months of subtle deception. Suddenly, the harassment stopped. The truth lay bare, and the storm of lies dissolved into silence. Judah and Elm separated, and I never heard from either again. I often wonder how close I came to something far worse. Perhaps I escaped by mere chance that day, when exhaustion cut our hangout short. Elm's facade had concealed darkness too deep to fathom, a danger that I hope I will never encounter again. And for the love of God, stay far away from my anonymous messages.
I've been a dog walker for a small but busy company for years, and while most days are mundane, pick up a dog, walk it, drop it off, some days stick with you in a way you can never forget. One client lives in a picturesque, seemingly peaceful neighborhood, the type of place where every hedge is perfectly trimmed and every street lamp glows warmly in the morning fog. But sometimes the calmness in such neighborhoods is deceptive, hiding things no one wants to see. I go to this client twice a week, usually in the mornings. Like most dog owners, they have a lockbox for the keys. They kept theirs behind a vase next to their apartment door, a spot that seemed harmless enough, ordinary, almost forgettable. That Monday morning, I was already running behind. Parking was a nightmare, as usual, and I was desperate to grab Mia, their Bernoodle puppy, by 9:45 a.m. so I could stay on schedule for the day. My nerves were fraying even before I reached the apartment. I wrapped my hand around the vase to grab the lockbox and found nothing. Panic prickled at the edges of my mind. Sometimes owners forget to put out the lockbox, yes, but something about that morning felt wrong. I checked under mats, around the railings, anywhere it could be hidden. Still nothing. My heart began to race. I texted the owner, Kay, asking where the lockbox might be. Normally she's so busy she doesn't respond immediately, but I had no choice. Minutes dragged by. I tried to reason with myself, telling myself it was probably nothing, but the unease was growing like a shadow creeping across the walls. I knocked. Nothing. Knocked again. Still silence. Finally, I heard shuffling upstairs, a hesitant, dragging sound.
Someone was moving toward the stairs. The door creaked open. It wasn't Kay, nor her husband. A man stood there, draped in a thin white towel that barely stayed on his hips. He held Mia in his arms, her tiny paws twitching nervously, and his wide eyes locked on mine. A shiver ran down my spine, a cold realization settling in. This man was not supposed to be there. "Hey, I'm here to take Mia for her walk," I managed, forcing my voice to remain calm despite the panic bubbling beneath the surface. He set Mia down, handed me the leash, and passed me the lockbox without a word, mumbling something I didn't catch. I walked out of the apartment with Mia in tow, my mind spinning. What had I just stumbled upon? During our walk, my manager called. Apparently, Kay had received a strange message that morning. A man had come by, claiming to be a new dog walker and asking for their lockbox code. Her husband, rushing out the door, had given it to him without a second thought, but no new walker had been arranged. I told my manager about the man in the towel. Police were called immediately. I was told in no uncertain terms never to enter that apartment again. Kay's husband arrived shortly after, furious at himself for handing over the code, but relieved that nothing was missing. As I continued walking Mia down the busy main street, I saw him again. Across the road, that same man, holding a beer, grinning unnervingly, called out, "Hi, doggy, hi, doggy," before sprinting away. My stomach churned. He knew where they lived. He knew their routines. He had been watching, studying. Once Kay and her husband reached the apartment, we inspected everything. The place was untouched. Nothing was missing. The only evidence of his presence was the dirty water in the shower, the faint, lingering scent that made my skin crawl. The experience left me shaken. The intrusion, the violation, the creeping fear. It's terrifying to realize how easily a seemingly innocent morning could have turned catastrophic. All he wanted was a shower that day, but tomorrow, who knows what he might want? Even now, I can't walk past a vase without imagining someone watching, lurking in the shadows. Every familiar street corner feels a little too quiet, every neighbor a little too alert. And I keep asking myself, how many people like him are out there, silently observing, waiting for the perfect moment? The calm streets of that neighborhood hide more than just quiet. They hide strangers with invisible eyes, strangers who know more than they should, who know exactly how to strike without warning. And that thought alone keeps me alert every time I reach for a vase, every time I let Mia out, every time I step out of my door. Because sometimes the most mundane routine can expose you to the darkest truths about human nature.
A few years back, my brother-in-law bought another apartment complex in Florida. He already owned several in West Palm Beach and Miami. When he asked me to manage this new property, I thought it sounded like an easy gig. I had just graduated from college and was planning to pursue my master's, so it seemed like the perfect way to keep busy. He booked my flight to Orlando, and I was ecstatic. I love Disney and was already imagining a year-long pass, exploring all the parks, maybe even enjoying some of the nightlife. But as soon as we drove out of Orlando, that excitement began to fade. The property wasn't in Orlando at all. It was in a tiny, obscure town called Lakeburg. The best way I can describe it,
If a biker town and a retirement community had a child, it would look just like this. Quiet, slow-paced, unsettlingly still, nothing like what I'd imagined. Still, I settled in. The complex was small, only 11 units, including my own one-bedroom tucked in the corner. Most residents were retirees, snowbirds, a couple of military families, chill, quiet people. But then there was Andy. Andy was massive. I'm a big guy, 6'4" and 250 pounds, but Andy made me feel like a child. He had to be at least 6'6" and over 400 pounds. He walked with a cane, kept his long black hair in a ponytail, and claimed to work from home, though rumors said he was on disability after a work accident. Honestly, I didn't care much. He paid rent on time and kept mostly to himself. His apartment was immaculate, too. I'd only entered once to fix his AC. There wasn't a beer can or pizza box in sight. Things stayed calm for nearly a year. Then, one night in November, the rain came down in sheets, typical Florida weather. Around midnight, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Joe, one of the retirees. Normally cheerful, he looked pale and tense. "Sorry to bother you, Sam," he whispered, "but something's not right with Andy." I threw on a jacket and followed him to Andy's apartment. Joe pressed a finger to his lips and motioned me to listen. I pressed my ear to the door. Inside, Andy was yelling. Not a normal argument, full-blown screaming, crashing, shattering sounds. But Andy never had visitors, not once in the year I'd been there. I knocked. Heavy footsteps approached, and Andy opened the door. He looked off. Normally neat and clean, now his shirt was stained, his hair greasy, and the smell hit me instantly, foul, overwhelming. Glancing inside, the apartment was a disaster zone. Trash, overturned furniture, stained carpet. "Everything okay?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He grunted and slammed the door. I told Joe to keep me posted, then went back to my unit. The next morning, I checked again. No response. I forgot as the day went on. By December, rent collection began. Andy's check never arrived. Concerned, I went to his apartment. Still nothing. Later that day, the moaning started. Low, pained, chilling. I know I should have called the police immediately. I didn't. Curiosity took hold. I used my master key. The stench hit like a physical blow. Vomit, urine, feces, rotting human odor. The walls were streaked. The apartment worse than I imagined. I called Andy's name, then 911. The moaning came from the back room. My heart hammered, but I couldn't stop. What I saw still haunts me. Andy lay naked, slumped on the floor, covered in filthy clothes and his own waste. Puke had soaked the carpet. Worse, his body was covered in bites. Not fleas, human bites. His arms and legs raw, some wounds infected. And the injuries inflicted on himself, even from his back end. I thought someone had attacked him, but days later, the horrifying truth came out. Rushed to ICU, Andy's sister, his medical guardian, explained he suffered from severe mental disorders. He'd stopped taking his medication weeks prior. There was no intruder. He'd argued with himself. The bites, the bleeding, it was self-inflicted. A complete mental breakdown of the most violent kind. He survived, barely, moved in with his sister to recover, leaving me to clean his apartment. While packing and cleaning, I found a shoebox in his room. Magazine clippings, old family photos, pictures of other tenants, including me. Every eye burned out with cigarettes, some mouths marked with X's. My stomach turned. Was this part of his illness or something far darker? Had Andy always been like this, hiding behind rent checks and quiet routines? I'll never know. I never spoke to him again after his recovery. I hope he's on his medications and safe. But I pray he never returns to this complex, especially not for that shoebox. Because some doors, once opened, can never be closed.
This happened to me when I was only 11 years old, living in a modest, lower-middle-class neighborhood in Arnold, Missouri. Back then, I didn't truly understand how dangerous the world could be. It was the early 90s, and I was naive, sheltered, and perhaps far too trusting for my own good. I had placed small posters around the neighborhood offering babysitting services, complete with my phone number, thinking it was just an innocent way to earn a little extra money. I had no idea that those tiny sheets of paper could serve as invitations for something terrifying. At first, the calls were quiet and polite. A man identified himself only as Doctor. No full name, no credentials, just Doctor. He started with seemingly harmless questions, things about basic health, but soon his inquiries grew personal, probing, and inappropriate. He asked if I had reached puberty, if I had started my period. Then, shockingly, he began asking about my older sisters. Each call left me uneasy, a subtle knot of fear tightening in my stomach that I couldn't shake. As time went on, his requests grew more explicit and disturbing. He instructed me to do things over the phone that I instinctively knew were wrong. He made it clear that I could never tell anyone. For a child, these instructions were bewildering, frightening, and suffocating. I began lying to him, pretending I had done what he asked, but he somehow sensed my deception and grew increasingly frustrated. Every call left me with a lingering fear, a heavy dread that something terrible could happen if I didn't comply. One day, my older sister was nearby while I was on the phone. Desperate for someone to understand what I was enduring, I begged her to take the receiver. She hesitated at first, but finally she agreed. The moment she picked it up, the line went dead. I felt a fleeting sense of relief, but I knew deep down that the danger was far from over. About a week later, the threat became frighteningly real. I was walking alone down my street, a routine I had developed to pass the long, quiet hours in our small town. The afternoon was cool and gray, and the shadows of the trees stretched long across the cracked sidewalks. I noticed a car moving slowly behind me, a dark, old, battered vehicle. My stomach clenched. I didn't want to look too closely, not wanting to provoke whatever was following me. Yet the car maintained my pace, staying just about 10 feet behind, never overtaking me. Panic surged through me. My legs moved faster, my heart pounded violently in my chest. I could feel the presence of the driver behind me, and the thought that he might reach out and grab me made each step feel unbearably heavy. I broke into a jog, then a run, desperate to reach the safety of my home. My breath came in ragged gasps, my chest tight with fear. I flung open the front door and glanced back, just in time to see the car swerve into a neighbor's driveway before speeding away. After that, the calls stopped, the following stopped, yet the terror lingered. Even as a child, I realized how close I had been to becoming a victim in a story from which there might have been no escape.
I was just a child. No matter how hard I tried, I could never have overpowered a full-grown man. Luck, fate, or some unseen force had spared me. Looking back at news from that time, I learned that several young girls in and around Arnold had gone missing or were found murdered. Many of these cases remain unsolved. Authorities could never determine if it was a single person or multiple predators. But I cannot shake the thought that I might have been another target, another statistic, if even the smallest circumstances had been different. I never told my parents, never confided in anyone. But even now, decades later, I feel that same creeping dread in my chest when I remember those calls, the slow-moving car trailing me, the looming shadow of danger that hovered over my small life. The world is full of hidden predators, and as a child, you never know which simple action, like putting up a babysitting poster, might attract someone with terrible intentions. I was fortunate, more than fortunate. I was spared. And yet the memory remains, a dark reminder that innocence can shatter in an instant, and that sometimes survival is nothing short of a miracle.